first century were said to be farmers in Nazareth, and the exact size of the farm is stated, which means it must have been remembered in the Jewish Christian movement.
There still survived of the relatives of Jesus, the grandsons of Judas, who, according to the flesh, was called his brother. These were informed against as belonging to the family of David.
Another relative of Jesus is remembered here too. Hidden behind an iron gate, in what's left of the ancient church, is more proof that Jesus' family was still living here more than 200 years after his death. Now we know that there was a person called Conan who was martyred in Turkey in the 3rd century. And when he was martyred, he said that he was a Christian from Nazareth and from the family of Jesus.
I am from the city of Nazareth in Galilee, answered Conan, and I am of the family of Christ, whose worship I have inherited from my ancestors.
When the monks were first excavating here 100 years ago, they discovered a small grotto that they believed was dedicated to this same Conan.
So here appears to be someone who comes from Nazareth. He lived there himself at some earlier point in his life. He was now a gardener in Pamphylia in Asia Minor, but he's a member of the family of Jesus. So that also tells us that there were still members of the family living in Nazareth, at least around the beginning of the 3rd century, which we wouldn't otherwise have known.
According to Begati's guidebook, in a town 10 miles away, there was a burial site for another of Jesus' relatives. There is a very early Jewish tradition about a certain James of Sakhneen. Now, he was a prominent teacher, Christian, and close follower of Jesus. Now, according to my guidebook, when Begati gets here in 1961, the tomb is named after a James the Just.
Who is this James of Sakhneen? The possibility arises. There are the 2 grandsons of Jesus' brother Jude, whose names were James and Zochar. There's quite a good chance, I think, that James of Sakhneen may have been James, the grandson of Jude, who was a relative of Jesus. It's quite possible that this is really the site where one of the relatives of Jesus was buried. And he's probably the last person that we know belonged to the family of Jesus.
Before I left, I wanted to ask the town's Greek Orthodox priest if there were any local traditions concerning Jesus' family.
Now, let me tell you something. The Orthodox belief is that Jesus didn't have brothers, not at all. Now, there is another thing I need to tell you. Our belief is that he is from God, yes, from God. Now, we know that Joseph, let's say the foster father of Jesus, if you like, before Mary was brought to him in the temple, Joseph was married to someone else, another woman, and he had 4 children with her. Now, when Jesus was born, he grew up and spent his life with these 4 sons, but they were only his half-brothers.
Could it be, then, that James, who, according to tradition, was Joseph's son before Mary, could it be that one of his descendants is buried here?
I don't know. So, maybe.
Okay. Maybe.
Sure. For 2,000 years, the Roman Catholic and Orthodox churches have done their best to deny the existence of Jesus' blood family. And they're still doing so today. But if you study the Bible closely and the other historical texts, the real story emerges. Jesus had a large extended family and they lived here in Galilee. There is even physical evidence of their presence. Israeli archaeologist Dr. Moti Aviam has been investigating the biblical sites of Galilee for the last 25 years.
Top of the hill is Nazareth, Jesus' home place.
So where are we going to now?
We're getting now into a cave.
8 miles away from the traditional pilgrimage site for the wedding feast of Cana, there is another site that Motti is convinced is the real location of the Jesus family wedding 2,000 years ago. Today, it's abandoned and closed to the public. It's never before been filmed. Wow, this is an amazing cave. But what do we have here? What can we see?
This stone over here, which originally was a lid of a sarcophagus, but on its side, a cross was cut.
There's a period in Jesus' life that has mystified biblical scholars for centuries. Between his birth and age 30, we know virtually nothing about what he did or where he was.
And now we're going to see a stone jar.
I believe there is a simple explanation for this. During those years, Jesus was growing up with his family here in Galilee.
This is the stone jar of Jesus, the place of the miracle of transferring water into wine.
And the family didn't fit the later story of his life. So when Jesus became God, they were written out of his story. And you can see this in the Bible itself. In the earliest Gospel, Mark, the brothers and sisters are clearly referred to.
Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James, and Joseph, and Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?
But by the time the last Gospel was written, the same passage has been changed.
Is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know?
Jesus' brothers and sisters have been deleted. The rewriting of Jesus' family life didn't stop here. Next time, I reveal that Jesus was not unique in his mission, that another family member was his original teacher. And in order to try to cover this up, I believe the Bible writers actually changed the story.